Well, hello everybody, and a very warm welcome to this webinar on how to make the most of your Princess Royal Training Awards application. And we've got people with us today who have applied in the past and yet to be successful. We've got people who have been successful, and we've got people who haven't applied at all. So we're going to cover all the bases and provide you with all the information you need to ensure that you make the most of the application. I'm Michael Oswald-Deston, and the good-looking one on the left is my colleague Remy, who's with us today. And in fact, we're joined by Louise, one of our other colleagues, who's desperately worried that I might ask her to say something during the course of the webinar, but I'll behave myself and not. But even more important than the team here in London are our assessors, and we have our Chief Assessor, Paul Robertson, and Fenella Challen, our Deputy Chief Assessor. So hi Paul and Fenella.
Hello.
Good morning.
I'm going to just explain what we're going to do during the course of the webinar, which is obviously tell you about the awards. We'll run through the application process and tell you what's new for 2020. We'll also share some advice on the sorts of things that people quite often could improve on to increase their chances of receiving one of the awards. Focus on evidence, because these are evidence-based awards, and I hear from both Paul and Fen about some of the other ideas and comments that they might have. But one of the most important things of today's webinar is the opportunity for you to ask questions. So there'll be two opportunities during the course of the webinar to ask questions, one in the middle and one at the end. And you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen a box, and if you type in that box, we will pick up your questions, and between the four of us, we'll deal with them during the course of the webinar. And hopefully nobody will go away without the answers to the sort of things they want to hear about. So moving on to the next slide, what are the Princess Royal Training Awards all about? Well, as you can see, they are supported very fully by Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal, who is the President of City and Guilds of London Institute. These awards are brought to you by City and Guilds as part of our Royal Charter work. We are a charitable organisation. We've been around for 141 years, and we're all about encouraging the development of skills for individual, organisational and economic well-being. The Princess Royal, as I say, is our president, and she's a very active president, and these awards are not just done in her name, but done with her involvement too. So if you get an award, she will have signed it off. Nobody gets an award without the Princess Royal's involvement. They are evidence-based awards. They are for employers to demonstrate the impact that training and learning and development has on their organisation and people. And they are a standard of excellence. So there's not just one winner. If you achieve the standard of excellence, you'll be recognised by receiving one of these prestigious awards at a rather nice event at the Palace later in the autumn. So they are evidence-based, they are about impact, they're about addressing challenges and opportunities, and they're about taking people on journeys so that they have skills that address those challenges that employers have. They're open to all employers, regardless of size, regardless of sector, and regardless of whereabouts in the United Kingdom they may be. They're also open to organisations who use voluntary workers. So if you're developing your volunteers, these awards are relevant to you. But they're not designed for training organisations who are simply delivering training to third parties. They are open to training organisations who increase the skills of the people who work for them to enable them to do what they do better. So they are robust, and we make no apology for that, but our ethos is to catch you in, not catch you out. So we do everything we can to help you achieve the standard of excellence and to evidence that to us and to the assessors so that you can gain recognition. In effect, we are creating a platform for UK PLC to showcase the very best of training, the very best of staff development, and to share it, because a really important part of becoming part of the alumni of the Princess Royal Training Awards is having access to other people who've achieved the standard and who are indeed willing to share that and to help build even better training and development because of that. So once we've received the written application, our assessment team led by Paul and Fenella will review that. If you get through the first round, then we do a site visit, and again that's one of the assessors together with a representative of City and Guilds will come and spend half a day validating your application form. That's a very important part of this whole program. The Chief Assessor, Paul, then makes recommendations to the Princess Royal Training Awards Commission, which is made up of people from the L&D world who have expertise and knowledge, and they will adjudicate which award should be presented to Her Royal Highness for royal approval, and nothing is confirmed until the Princess Royal has signed it off. Now, if you don't get through any of those stages, we provide detailed feedback to applicants, and that's 3 or 4 pages of detailed information, and it's an important part of it because these awards are free to enter. There is no charge to apply, and there's no charge for the ceremony. We're not flogging tables of 10 to people for the highest bidder. The awards are free, but we do recognise that they take time and effort, and people have to commit to doing it, and we recognise that that has a genuine cost. And so the quid pro quo, if you don't get an award, is that we'll provide you with detailed feedback, almost as free consultancy. So that's our side of the bargain. So very much a partnership between the team here and yourselves, helping you to showcase the impact that your training's having on your organisation and impact on the people. And these are some of the organisations who over the last 4 years have gained the standard, and we have well over 100 organisations now have achieved the standard, and they range from charities through to people like the Royal Navy, from household names like Bentley, through to organisations you may not know. Oakman Bars and Restaurants are one of our successful applicants, as are the Royal Bank of Scotland, and the Clink charity, who work to train prisoners to reduce reoffending by creating opportunities in the hospitality and catering industry. They're doing great things in Brixton Prison, in Cardiff Prison, and in Style up in Cheshire. So a real mishmash of organisations, illustrating that these are not for one sector, they're not for one size. We have a tiny plumber in Brishton, in Padiham in North East Lancashire, or you may be a massive global organisation like IBM. And these awards, because you're only competing against what you're trying to achieve yourself, you're never competing one another with other organisations. And getting the award actually has a significant impact. And we know that around half of the organisations who achieve an award actually get an increase in their training and development budgets. Now, that's actually quite impactful. If you go to your board and ask for an increase in your budget, your board and your chief financial officer is bound to say, well, of course you want more money, doesn't everybody? If you go and ask for more money and say, well, we've got independent evaluation by City and Guilds and the Princess Royal, and we've achieved an award given to us by the Princess Royal, that changes that conversation significantly. So we are providing learning and development professionals with the external evidence that what they're doing is genuinely having an impact on their organisation and their people. And as you can see, the Royal Bank of Scotland, great supporters, received 3 awards. I've absolutely no doubt they'll be applying again this year. They use the model that we use, so the way that the assessment takes place, the application takes place, they use it to challenge their internal training programs, as in fact did the Royal Navy, because we're really keen that if you should enjoy this process, you should recognise the value of the process in its own right, and we're keen to allow you to continue to use that process in terms of assessing what you're doing within your organisation. So moving on to the application itself, this is where you tell us your story. This is where you share with us your good news. You tell us the things you're proud of, and you tell us about the impact. And on the screen, we've got the 2 documents that you'll be dependent on to make a great application for one of our awards. There's the application planner, which has all the details in it about the criteria and how it's scored, and some examples and illustrations of how you can use it. And of course, the application form itself, which you can either send to us as a Word document, or you can do it online, whichever's easier for you. If I was doing it, I would prepare it on a Word document and then cut and paste into the final submission online. Those are the 2 documents that will guide you through the whole process. The assessors have no more information, in fact, in front of them than you have in front of you in those 2 documents. That's really important. There are no hidden agendas in these awards. There are no limits to the number of organisations who can get the awards. We're making absolutely no effort whatsoever to trip you up. We're trying to help you rather than find fault in you. So this is about encouraging people to share best practice, not discouraging people by nitpicking things which really aren't important. But those are the 2 awards which you can download. You can see them online. They're there for you to use, and the team here are more than happy to help you. Now, Paul, I mean, you helped us devise these awards when we set them up. and they're based on 3 hallmarks of excellence. Do you want to begin by just telling us a little bit about these 3 hallmarks of excellence, which are so basic to the questions we're asking the applicants, please?
I'm very pleased to do so. The starting point obviously is the why. The rationale for the learning and development is key to a successful application. I've been working recently with a college who have applied in 2019, and the issue for them was very straightforward. They'd forgotten about why they started the initiative. It was a college that's gone through some difficult times, has come through them very successfully, but part of it, because it's a long-term program, a long-term process, people forget why. So the challenge for you is, as you start to put your application together, is to answer the why question in a definitive way. There isn't a best for us, but it's a case of, as you start telling us about your learning and development journey, tell us why you did it. Was it an opportunity? Was it a problem? Was it something in the environment? It's whatever you tell us, but we do need to know the why question. That provides the basis for us to then look at the how and the what. So it's the foundation, and looking at the why is the start point of seeing your entry, your application holistically. As you can see here, that we have the 3 hallmarks, but they all need to link together. And therefore, in terms of your preparatory work, then seeing the application as a holistic activity rather than 3 separate pieces of documentation becomes really important. Fen spends quite a lot of time working with applicants and managing site visits. So Fen, we'd like to talk a little bit about the how and the what, please.
Yes, thank you, Paul. Yeah, so the how and the what correspond to hallmarks 2 and 3 in the application form. So first of all, we look at the why, which is hallmark 1, and then we come on to the how. So we know why you're wanting to do it. The second question is actually, how did you go about it? How did you go about designing your learning and development program? Who did the work for you? Did you contract an organisation to help you? Was it done internally? And how did you go about doing it? Did you involve some of the workforce? And we want to know that sort of detail about how you designed it. Also, how did you deliver it as well? We want to know information about that. And how much did it cost? That kind of thing we want to see in hallmark 2. And then when we come to actually visit you, if you get through to that stage of the application process, we will then question you further about how you develop the programme. We'll also want to talk to some of the learners who've gone through the programme, perhaps some who are studying at the moment. So this is your opportunity here to tell us how you did it, and then we can ask you further about it later. And then the what actually happened? That's hallmark 3. What was the impact of the learning on your organisation? Did you actually do what you expected? Did you meet any targets that you'd set? What actually happened, and how did you measure it as well? As Michael was saying earlier, these are evidence-based awards, so we do actually want to see evidence of the impact that you've had on your organisation. Okay, so they're the 3 sort of tenets of the application process, and we do follow these through as well, as I was saying, if we come to visit you on a site visit. Okay, so just to summarise, hallmark 1 is all about the why, and we'll go on a bit later to talk about perhaps areas that people could improve on, and this is one of them. They forget to say why, as Paul was saying earlier. Sometimes you get so embroiled in what you're doing in L&D, you think actually you forget why you did it. So we need to know why. Hallmark 2, we need to know how did you do it? And then with hallmark 3, we want to know what was the impact, both on your organisation and also on the people who undertook the learning. It's really important not to forget the learner voice, and sometimes that does get lost. Okay, so moving on to the timeline. The application's now open. As Michael was saying, you can apply online, or you can fill in a Word document and send it to us. They close on the 31st of March, so you've got a bit of a window now to get working on it. Please submit them to us by the 31st of March. After that, the assessment process takes place, where our team of assessors will look at all the applications and we will make a recommendation, and that happens in April. Then if you get through to the next stage, which is a site visit stage, those happen at the sort of middle to end of May and through to the middle of June. And then all the reports are written following that assessment process, and recommendations are made to the commissioners, and they meet generally around the end of July. So the next time that you'll hear from the Princess Royal Training Wards, if you've had a site visit, will be on the 15th of August. That's actually the Princess Royal's birthday, and the award recipients are announced on that day. So if you've had a visit, you will hear on the 15th of August about whether you've been successful or not. And then the award ceremony generally happens end of October, beginning of November, and it has been at St James's Palace for the last 4 years. So that's the timeline, and all this information is on the Princess Royal Training Awards website.
Thank you very much indeed, Finn. That's really, really helpful and really, really clear. Paul, we've got something new this year. So do you want to just run through the new thing that we're offering our applicants in 2020?
Well, we know one of the problems for applicants is that they procrastinate, and on occasion, a potentially successful application doesn't progress the way it ought to because everything was done a little bit late. So what we're trying to do is, as Michael said earlier on, catch you in rather than catch you out. And therefore, if you hopefully are starting work on your application, if you get it to us by the end of February, we'll provide a one-page summary in terms of feedback about things that are positive and, as it says here, on the right track, but also some indicators of areas where you might want to ask more questions or collect more data. This is an evidence-based award process, and therefore making sure you've got the evidence in place by the closing date becomes more and more important. Sometimes it means you can put together a very brief survey. It means you maybe need to do some external research, but what it does is give you a chance to hone and finalize your application. As it says here, it's only available to people who attend webinars and to the workshops, and we would really strongly encourage you to start work on this. Again, leaving it because you're busy, it becomes more and more of a problem.
Thank you, Paul. That's very true. Now, I just want to remind everybody that you have the opportunity to ask questions and we will answer them. So if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, if you want to type in any questions, we'll pick them up, and we're going to break in a few minutes for the first lot of questions and answers. But before we do that, Penella, you do the assessments and go out and do the visits. What are the sort of things that you really would like people to build more on before they submit their applications to us?
I think one of the really crucial issues that we find is that people don't tell us the before story. So they don't focus enough on why they undertook the L&D initiative or the training initiative, because we want to compare the before story with the after story. So we need that before and after picture. So, why were you doing it? What were you actually trying to achieve? And then actually, did you achieve it at the end? And sometimes we find that when applications come through, although they may very able to articulate very well what they were hoping to achieve, it might actually be too early in the process, or the training might not have actually finished. And so it might be quite difficult to then evidence in Hallmark 3 what the impact has been. So to tell us what the after picture is. And we do find that, I think, in the L&D world, you get so excited about training sometimes, and you really know that when you've hit on something that's absolutely brilliant and you want to tell everybody about it, sometimes people will apply before it's actually finished, and then actually there hasn't been time for that impact to really show through on both your people and the organisation. So I think that's one of the main areas of development. So perhaps leave it for a year. We are going to be around in years to come. If you think it's a bit too early to submit your application, that's fine. Do leave it until you've got the right sort of evidence.
I mean, Fen, just picking up on that, that's a really good opportunity to use this early submission, isn't it? If you
Yes.
make an early submission and we can review it, and if we think it's too early to submit finally, we can advise that it's best to come back after a 12-month period when more evidence. And evidence, again, is a really important element of what we need to see before we can actually make an award, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, the issue in terms of evidence is that it's relevant and appropriate. One of the challenges for the assessment team is that often, unfortunately too often, applicants provide a whole range of additional information, as I say, within limits, sometimes, but sometimes people have tried to get outside the limits, which is not relevant. The way the process works is that we take what you tell us in your application as accurate and appropriate. But if you give us, for example, one line of a 100-page report, that one line makes the report eligible for validation for site visits. So what we're looking for is, first of all, clear evidence that supports what you're telling us in the written sections, but also it's recognizing that this is not a funding bid. It is about bringing your application to life. It is about, as Fen said earlier, making sure the learner's voice is in there and the fact that you're excited and interested in it. One of the challenges for longer term programs is that you're looking ahead. Sometimes, as Sven said, you forgot where you started from. So give us that before picture, give us that after picture, but also tell us why it was a challenge and why it was exciting when you set up the initiative. The hallmark limits are clear. Please, no external links. We don't use them. The assessors will not access them. And make sure that in terms of your evidence, it's appropriate and relevant. The assessors will not cherry pick through stuff and hope to find the right bits. The onus is on the applicant to link the evidence back to the application and show us why it's appropriate and relevant.
I think that's incredibly important points, Paul, and thank you for sharing those. I think in the first year we didn't have limits to the amount of evidence you could attach, and we still got one assessor working on them. I think there were 84 different attachments, and we have to provide a level playing field. So regardless of whether you're a big multinational or a small organization, we want everybody to have a chance to access the Princess Royal Training Awards. So we have to make this doable for both the applicants but also for the assessment. Now we come to the first of the question and answers. We've got a question here from Steve who's asked, are there examples of prior applications we can look at? I mean, Paul, do you want to just come in on that, and then perhaps we'll share thoughts on that?
Part of the issue is that every application is individual and different, because we look at the application in a context, and therefore showing you what other people did in some ways isn't particularly helpful. The other thing is that we promise confidentiality in terms of you providing us with information. On occasion, organizations provide quite sensitive information, either financial or marketing information, which would be completely inappropriate to share. What we do with the applicant's approval is put together case studies and examples of best practice. So we've thought very seriously and very hard about this. We can't provide you with this is how to do it in the sense of here's somebody else's application, copied that and you were successful. It's you against the standard, you demonstrating your own achievements and successes. So it makes it a bit harder in one sense, but it takes away the thought that it's a stereotypical process.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, Paul, isn't it? That the only thing you're competing against is whether you've achieved what you set out to achieve in terms of the impact of your training on your people and the organisation. Now, I think if you look on the website, there are lots of case studies, all the organisations who've ever got the awards. we've got information about them all. And one of the things that people who get the awards are always very happy to do is talk to somebody else. So if you see something that's very similar to what you've done, or if you sought to achieve, we can put people in touch with each other. One of the things that you do once you get the award is guarantee to share ideas. And from our experience, organisations are very keen to share what they've done. So it brings it on in a sense to the fact that, just to remind people that there is this opportunity this year at the end of February to share the draft of your application and then get a steer from Paul and from the assessors as to whether you're on the right track or not. And in many ways, that's probably more use than looking at somebody else's application. The team here, Remy and Laura and the rest of the team, always very happy to talk people through any ideas it might got, and we will do all that we can to facilitate people developing the best possible application. So, Steve, I hope that answers your question. If you want to come back with more, then please do that. Got another one here, which I'm just peering across the room to see. What advice for an application building on previous submission, where we can evidence growth of the initial training submission made since the first one? Brilliant question, really good. Paul, do you want to talk a little bit about that, please?
Well, the starting point is, I know it sounds silly, but is to read the feedback. We've already had an organisation submit a 2020 application, and quite clearly the evidence they're submitting is not based on the feedback that we provided last year. So the starting point is read that, but also avoid the trap of taking last year's and doing a cut and paste on it. If it was unsuccessful or didn't achieve what you wanted last year, then start again. Quite often, the boilerplate chunk of information from last year into this year doesn't work for you. We've already seen that already. Again, I mentioned talking with a college, and they were just about to fall into that trap. They essentially canned their previous application and starting fresh because of some new insights, some new information, and feel like some new enthusiasm that they're building into a new application. So avoid that one.
Paul, if I can just build on that too, for an organisation who got one award 3 years ago and are seeking to build on what they've done within their organisation since that and apply for another award, can we just talk through that? Because I think that's a really exciting thing to see where an organisation has been successful and has built on it. What sort of things are we looking for there?
Progression, quite simply, that obviously you don't get an award for the same program that's been successful unless you developed it and can quite clearly show that it's more successful, more appropriate than in previous years. But very often organizations, as you've seen from some of the names that were up earlier on, have used the hallmarks as a way of defining the quality of their learning and development. And they've come back and said, we're doing this more, different, better, or they've demonstrated very clearly in an existing program there's progression, or we're doing new and better and different. Both of those are very acceptable, and we really look forward to seeing them.
Yeah, I think that's a really exciting development for the awards in general, and we do encourage people who've got the awards to build on them and then come back in later years, which is great stuff. So, Paul, if you were offering some of your top tips, and we share your top tips, as you know, with all and sundry because they are valuable and valued, what would those top tips be?
You're a very good straight man, Michael. So let's go on to these. Essentially, the important thing is to recognize the awards are evidence-based, and it is about being specific. It's avoiding the we're really very successful gives an award approach. Quite often organizations, applicants are general in their assertions without providing supporting evidence. The evidence, as it says, needs to be appropriate and relevant. The assessors will not troll through lots of information. As I said, it's a tip of an iceberg. You tell us one statement or some facts from a report, and all of that information becomes eligible at the point of a site visit. We want to be interested and excited by what you do because you ought to be. This is something that hopefully you're excited, proud of, and what we're trying to ask you to do is take something that is often long-term, show us the excitement, the importance of what you're doing, but also its impact on the organization. And on the learners, as Sven said earlier, the learner's voice is really, really important to us. We'll talk about it later on, but it is about quotable quotes, it's about employee surveys, it's about whatever you can include that shows that this is vibrant, organic, exciting. Evidence was very much around tangibles, and I'm getting a hurry up call here, so remember. So over to you, Fen.
Thank you. I think, yeah, a top tip is get someone else to read it, because as I was saying before, you can get really close to an application. You spent loads of time putting it together. And if you get somebody else to read it, perhaps somebody else outside L&D who can just give you a sense check of, actually, have you explained what you're doing and is it understandable? But having said that, don't get it agreed by committee, because sometimes if you get too many people involved and they all sort of want to change little bits and pieces, you can actually lose the energy that you had in your first draft. So try and avoid that as well. Also, please, please, please don't use jargon. Our assessor team are very experienced, but they don't know the jargon from every single sector. So please explain it, anything, any acronyms that we might not understand. Also, really stick to the criteria as well. The application planner gives you lots of hints and tips about what we want to see in each of those hallmarks. So please stick to that, because as the assessor team actually grade you against that, we're actually marking and giving you points per criterion. So please, please do stick as much as you can to those. As Paul was saying earlier, we need to have relevant evidence that you can attach to your application, and also you get some more word count in there as well. We know the word count in the body of the application is really, really tight, but for each hallmark you get an additional 500 words. So that's 1,500 additional words across the application that you can use within those evidence attachments. So please do make use of that. So as well as including charts and graphs and that sort of thing, you can include a bit of narrative as well in those attachments. So please do that. And also, finally, do ask for help. It's not a weakness to ask for help. The team is absolutely willing and ready to help you to answer any of the questions, even if you think it's a really daft question. Don't worry about that. They are there to help. As we've been saying all across this webinar, we're here to catch you in, not to catch you out. So if you're not sure about something, please don't hesitate to contact one of the team. They'll be very willing to help you.
Thank you very much indeed, Fen. I can just repeat, if people have got questions they want us to deal with, type them up. And I hope if Jill and Steve, we've answered your questions, that's great. If we haven't completely answered your question, then come back to us, either drop us an email and we'll give you a call and chat through any points that you want to raise with us after the webinar. We have a series of workshops. We've run one or two already. We're running a series next week, and in fact for the next 3 weeks, all around the United Kingdom. We'll be going to all 4 corners of the globe to deliver workshops. And if you would like to go on a workshop, go onto the website, find out where the workshop is, and you'll be very, very welcome to join us. They're, again, obviously free. We have assessors at several of them, and we do use them to help people think through what their application is going to look like, and indeed to talk to one another. One of the great advantages of attending a workshop is you get to chat to other people, and because you're not competing with them, then you can share good ideas and help develop ideas further during the course of it. It's surprising how many people leave the workshops going off together to the pub to talk about the sort of learning and development that they're doing, and sharing the pride in that. So that's really quite exciting. But the team here are very, very happy to help. So please never be afraid to drop us an email or to pick up the phone and call us. Very happy to work through your thoughts and to share our thoughts and support you in doing that. So got a couple of questions here. Somebody mentioned the alumni, and what was it? Well, we bring together regularly all the organisations we invite all the organisations who've achieved the awards to come together. Last October, we had over 100 people at an alumni event one evening, and we provided speakers, and we provided the opportunity for networking and sharing ideas. and a good time was had by all. We've got an event in South Wales coming up shortly. We've got another event in London coming up. IBM are hosting an event. We've got British Steel, or Tata Steel now, hosting an event in Wales. Again, really great opportunity to get together with other learning and development professionals who are as equally committed to delivering excellence in the workplace as you are. So a great chance to network and a great chance to be part of a movement of people trying to drive genuine impact across the UK PLC. Now, we got one question on learner voice, and I know Paul and Fen, you mentioned it several times, the learner voice. Fen, can you just tell us what the learner voice actually looks and feels like in an application, please?
Thanks, Michael. Yes, it can be a quote or a couple of quotes from learners that indicate how they've actually put the learning into practice and how it's made a difference to them in their job. That's absolutely fine. And then if you get to a site visit, we can then actually talk to those people and we can ask them more about how they've put the learning into practice. So it's always useful to have a quote. And as Paul was saying about the evidence, it's the tip of the iceberg. If you mention a quote, then we can then go on to question further about that. Or also, if you've got an employee engagement survey, you may have some data from that you could include, which gives the learner a voice in that way. That's absolutely fine. And again, if you mention it in the application, we can have a look at it when we come to see you and see the whole employee engagement survey or whatever it is that you're referring to. But please do include something, because often we don't get the learner voice included, and it is one of the things that we do score you against when we're assessing your application.
And we have a final question here, Paul, for you, which is, can applicants present new evidence when the assessment team come and do the visit?
In a word, no. Essentially, if you provide new evidence, the assessors or the site visit team will not include it in their report. So it's straightforward. The answer is no. So as Fen was saying just a moment ago, it's really important to include within your application all the indicators that you might want to provide us if we carry out a site visit. I mean, the site visit isn't about trying to catch you out. It's not an inspection. It is exactly what we're saying. It's a visit to validate the information you provide us with. If we discover additional information, then it's not eligible because, as Michael mentioned earlier, it's an awful phrase, but it's really important to us. It's the level playing field, because in practical terms, we'd have to start rewriting your application to include and make the additional evidence relevant, and that's not, to be honest, our role.
Thank you very much indeed, Paul, and thank you to both you, Paul and Fen, for all your input today in terms of this webinar. We hope all the people on the webinar have found it useful. I'd like to thank everybody for giving up their time and being part of this, and encourage you, if you want to come along a workshop, go online and see where the nearest workshop is to you. We are here to help and support you. We're delighted that you're thinking about applying for royal recognition through the Princess Royal Training Awards. I'd remind you that the 31st of March is the closing date, but if you let us have a draft by the end of February, the assessors will review it and provide you with an oversight from it, and that's something we offer to those who attend either a workshop or a webinar. I'd like to thank my colleagues here in City and Guilds in London, Louise, who's kept very quiet and hasn't had to answer any questions, and Remy, who rarely keeps very quiet but has done today, but I'm sure she'll say lots of things at the next time we run a webinar. To all of you, you don't need good luck, because these awards are based on evidence, but what you do need to do is make sure that you present the evidence we need to see to demonstrate the impact that your training and learning and development has had both on your people and on your organisation. So we look forward to receiving your applications, and I hope you have a really good weekend when it comes, and thank you for joining us. Goodbye.